Everybody. Our panel this afternoon is parenting, grief, and mental health. And we're talking about grief from a number of different perspectives. Last year, we spoke with our attendees, and one of the things that we heard was that people were looking for um, everyday experiences, not just the expertise of the panelists, but also hearing the everyday experiences of panelists. So we have heard, and we are about to deliver, I hope. So we have four excellent panelists, all who are coming in with different levels of expertise or different types of expertise, but all have one thing in common. They're all dads, they're all fathers, and they all have their own fatherhood experiences. And so today we'll hear some of those experiences, we'll explore some of those challenges as well as some of the triumphs that they have experienced over time. We'll give some space towards the end or maybe somewhere in the middle for a couple of audience questions. When we get to the audience questions, please, it may not be necessary to give a full, extensive context to your question. If you could get to the question as quickly as possible so that we could facilitate as many questions that we can during that discussion. So when we talk about fathers, we often talk about fathers from the point of view of their responsibilities, their roles, the things that they are doing, the people that they are carrying. And very often we are not concerned with the men who are assuming those roles as fathers, what they are carrying, what they are dealing with. Before they became fathers, they were men. They were young boys, they were somebody's son, they had their own challenges. And after they become fathers, those don't get wiped away, they get compounded. And as a society, we do not spend much time thinking about what that looks like. So often when I sit in policy spaces and research spaces, the conversation usually is how can fathers be, how can we help fathers support mothers? Great initiative. How can fathers be strengthened so that they can support their children and their families? Great initiative. How can fathers support veterans? How can fathers support dogs? How can fathers grow trees? How can fathers do all of these things? And you never hear, or seldom do you hear, what do fathers need to be able to meet some of those skills, meet some of those challenges? Where are fathers now? What kinds of support systems need to exist, and where are the gaps in the current support systems? So today we'll explore some of that. We have four great panelists. We have Eric Crawford, who is a mental health worker and a grad student at the University of Wisconsin in the clinical counseling department. We have Felipe, what's your name? Felipe de los Santos, who's a lawyer and working out of New York City. We connected very serendipitously over email, and he said, "I have to be at this conference." But if you're going to bring that much motivation and passion to attending something that far from you, then we have to make sure that you can tell your story as well. So we want to hear a little bit from Felipe as well. Matt Calvert, who is a professor at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and has spent quite a bit of time as well working with the Division of Extension. He is in the School of Human Ecology. And Ben, I almost said Ben Calvert.
Killoy.
Ben Killoy, who is a life coach and veteran, is using his own experiences from his own life and from his life as a veteran and as a man and a father to support and strengthen men through his consulting services. So thank you very much, gentlemen, for agreeing to be part of this panel. I'll give you 1 minute each to kind of go across the panel, just 1 minute if you can, to tell us about your fatherhood journey. And think about it from this perspective. One moment that changed how you showed up as a father, and use that to tell your fatherhood journey. One moment that changed how you show up as a father. And you can use those little chocolate bar looking things next to you. So we start from Eric and come down.
I said in the wrong seat. Okay, I thought about this, and it's probably going to be, hopefully it's going to be less than a minute, but so many moments. But the one that is most salient and resonates most, I think, is my son and I were, his name's Amir. He's 5, so he may have been 3, 4 at the time. We were riding in the car, and I'm not sure if it was the music we were listening to, something he's seen outside, or just, his internal experience. He said, or he asked, it's like, why did only my mommy die? Now, his actual real first question was like, why did only mommy die? And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, why you didn't die? And I was like, wait a minute, hold on, he said, what? And then in our back and forth, he elaborated, why did only my mommy die? Why not other mommies and daddies? And for me, that was a moment where it kind of hit me, one, because I thought I'd be prepared when he asked that question. And I don't know no amount of research or being a therapist and working with other people in loss prepared me for that moment, but it was, so first I answered in the way I told myself I'd never answer, and I used God. And then I backtracked and I said, son, I don't know. I asked the same question too. And for me, I think that is what my fatherhood journey has looked like, coming from my own childhood of having big questions or just confusion and not having answers. And now being in a space where I have an answer. And question for me was a reminder that it's okay, and we're in this together, the not knowing. So I hope that sums it up.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for having me here. I've been thinking about this question for a little bit, and I became a dad at 16. And the moment that I remember was when I had the opportunity to go to college, and I wrote a letter to my son, who was really young at the time. He was about 2 years old, and just describing to him what I was going to embark on. I remember crying and leaving to school for 4 years and being in college. And at first, hiding the fact that I was a young dad. I didn't want that kind of people to look at me like that. And so I said that he was my younger brother initially, and then I embraced it. And my son is 23 now. He went to the same college that I did. And, that's helped to motivate me. I have two other sons. Not every journey has been as smooth. That's part of why I'm here. I'm here to learn, but that, I figured I'd share that at least to the start. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, I guess my journey feels a little bit different. I feel like I had a bit more of the privileged, normative childhood with 2 parents that stayed together until they died, and also had kids when I was about 30. But what I've realized in my journey is that my own family really focused on on perfectionism. There was not a lot of space for us to deal with anything that wasn't okay. Death certainly was not something that was allowed to be talked about within our households. I grew up with very few tools, I think, to deal with the hard things that are inevitable in life. When my kids were 9 and 7, our best family friend, who spent a lot of time in our house, died by suicide. Very sudden, very tragic for all of us, and I realized I didn't have the tools. But I've learned a lot through that moment of the need to lean into community, learn from other folks about how they process things, to create new ways of being together with other people that I think a lot of us really come through on the other side really strong.
For me, I would say it started in 2014. I had a 2-year-old daughter at the time and a son on the way. And I remember going into my daughter's bedroom and looking at her in the crib and asking this haunting question that we probably all can relate to. Who am I to be your dad if I can't even leave myself? That there was this precipice of, this doesn't feel like it's working. From my career to how I'm growing up, how I'm becoming a man. But the backstory is what led to this moment. Me and my wife, we just celebrated our 15-year anniversary 2 days ago, or on Thursday. Thank you. But the precipice of how that story started was, we were married October 16th, 2010. went on honeymoon May of the next year, and her dad was diagnosed with cancer in June and passed away by August. And I was a 28-year-old man who was faced with a big problem. How do you lead with a problem like that? She was 2 weeks pregnant when he passed away. And the tools that I learned in the Marine Corps as a son of a farmer and as what society was passing on to me of what I needed to be didn't work. And often people will say, Ben, how do you know so much stuff? And my quick answer is, because I fell into a hole and I had to find the wisdom for myself on how to lead myself out.
Thank you so much, Ben. Thank you very much, panelists, for your notice that we did not wade into the water, that we jumped right into the deep end. So please jump in with us as we continue this conversation. So I listened to you sharing about the initial trauma of learning of the diagnosis and the full journey until the inevitable death, and what that meant not just for your partner, but also for the strength of the relationship, how that might have shaken the relationship, how that might have challenged you as a man and as a young father. How did that experience shape how you respond to your daughter's emotional needs?
Essentially, over 10 years, you get to a point where you realize you can't control others. That no amount of force, no amount of yelling, no amount of, I'm your father and this is how it's going to be, none of that changes the outcomes. And ultimately, through that entire 10-year process, I dove in headfirst to self-leadership. And even to answer it simply, I had to get really serious that things will only get better. My kids' behavior, my daughter's emotions, my son's emotions, my wife's emotions, things will only get better when I get better. So no matter what was going on in the outside world, no matter how much it felt like a storm, I always went inward. Not as a retreat, but as I'm capable of getting through this. I've been in many situations worse than what I'm going through now, and I got through them. And that's often what we lose sight of as a father, is because we're going through it as alone. We feel like we're alone. We feel like everybody else has it together and that we're the only ones crumbling around us. But if you haven't felt it already in 2 sessions, we already are already connected before anybody said hello. We're all in the right room. And it was that approach to identify and control my own feelings, even to a simple mindset that I bring to hopefully all my moments that I lead as a father, to be the lowest heartbeat in the room. That if I can't be the lowest heartbeat in the room, then I can't be in charge. But if I stay cool, calm, and collective, many things are possible, even if it feels like their emotions are burning down the house. And I always try to take myself less serious. I try to find light in those moments. And I try to laugh and joke like this was not in the brochure. And whatever was going on, that's a common joke that I tell myself. It makes me laugh, it makes me smile when they're daddying you and asking 1,000 questions at the same time. It's like that was not, it's like the Santa Claus in the fine print. That was not in something that I read when I signed up for this. But here I am doing with it. So trying to keep yourself humble, laugh a little bit, be the lowest heartbeat, but identify that whatever's going on out here, that's not the problem. The problem is always inside. The outside world is just reflecting your inner world.
Thank you very much for that. So one of the things that I heard, or one of the underlying currents that I heard in your response, was counterculture to how we generally think of parenting. We often think of parenting from this very adult-centric way or this top-down way. It's the adult who is interacting with the child, and the child has to learn how to join this dance. But I was hearing this back and forth. And so I want to kind of continue that conversation around back and forth by going over to Eric. So Eric, you talked a little bit about how your conversations with Amir, and that very specific conversation with Amir about this really big existential issue, existential question about death and the permanence of death and what that means or may not mean for a child and how you explore that. Can you think of something that Amir did or said that helped you on your journey towards healing?
So I mean, there's numerous things even before his mom passed. A little backstory. So we're just about a year and a month, maybe 2 months out of so a year and a month from losing my wife. And I'm actually going to take it back before we lost her. We were in the hospital, and I don't know. I was trying to gauge where Amir was when while we were sitting in the hospital, and trying to gauge his understanding of death at that time. We had talked about certain stuff like bugs, and he even talked about he understood his mom had cancer to a level that he could understand it. And I don't know. I think I was getting anxious because I sensed that it was going to happen sooner than we had anticipated. And we're in the lobby or went out of the hospital, and he kind of got annoyed with me. I said, son, I don't know if you're understanding how serious this is. And I don't know why I felt the need to press that on him. But he said, well, Dad, she's alive now. Daddy. And I was like, whoa. And I shut up. And so, as it relates to his healing, I shut up sometimes. I just listen. I think unlike you, Ben, I think when a problem is really big, I actually work, but not in a healthy way. I just kind of I use work sometimes as an escape. But I think the thing that I do really well, I think when it matters is whether that's with Amir or my stepdaughter or even my wife at the time, is I listen. That grounds me. Sometimes I get away from it. I'm working, and then my wife says, "You're working too much." And I'm like, "I know what you mean. Okay, now stop." And sometimes he'll let me know, "Daddy, you're not at work." I'm like, "Okay." So I listen, and I think he's honest. He'll let me know. If I'm driving too fast, he'll let me know. If I turn a different way from the GPS, he'll let me know. And when he's feeling sad, or if he feels like when he's missing mom, or feeling disconnected from me, he'll say, "I'm feeling disconnected. I feel uncomfortable. Or I'm just sad right now. I'm angry about mom." And I listen, and so it stops me.
I'll let you know when there's an emergency too.
And he'll let me know when it's an emergency.
For those of you who may not have met Amir, he's probably one of the most vocal 5-year-olds that I know, and very advocative. He will tell you if he needs something, and he will tell you if what he needs is for you to go away as well. He does it respectfully, but he will impress whatever his need is at that moment. Thank you very much, Eric, for sharing that. So I want to kind of move over to Felipe, because part of what Felipe shared with us earlier about the co-parenting journey, I think when we think of trauma, we often think of quote unquote big things. We think of a physical accident, something deeply injurious to the body or to the mind. We think of death. We think of something permanent disfigurement. We don't often think of everyday experiences, or what might count as everyday experiences for an individual, and the weight of almost a Sisyphean task of continuing to push a heavy boulder up a hill, only to be back at the bottom of that hill with that same heavy boulder tomorrow. And so feeling as if you're doing it over and over again, you're exerting yourself with everything that you have, and you're making zero progress. Felipe, with that kind of a backdrop, can you think and share with us a time or a turning point in your co-parenting journey where the full weight of fatherhood compared to the piece of your child, where that became real to you?
So like I shared, I became a dad at 16, and the journey raising my older son was fairly smooth, because even though I wasn't together with his mother, our families got along really well. What has driven me to be here is actually my middle son, who's 10, and relationship just didn't work out, and I had to experience family court, something that I did not experience with my older son. I'm an attorney, and I was really almost steamrolled a little bit in the process and still dealing with it today. That's part of what's driven me to, to be here. And the analogy of the boulder, there was a presentation earlier, and in full disclosure, I have a tattoo of Atlas on my arm with the boulder. Sometimes I have to, I struggle being the lawyer in me and then being a dad. And feeling the absence of not being in my son's life all the time. I think just being here in this space and being able to hear from others that maybe have some similar experiences to me, is important. Another thing I just wanted to say, and I hope I'm answering the question, is I'm from New York, and I came here to Madison because I really didn't find resources like this even in New York, and I'm hoping that this will be something that can grow. I've been privileged enough actually with meeting Dr. Thomas. He connected me with another group of fathers in New York. And the way that it works is we just meet virtually, and these fathers show up and they don't show up. I haven't shown up for 5 or 6 weeks to these meetings, and they won't judge me. I come in with whatever's going on, and so do other fathers. And so I'm still very much, learning. The one thing I'll say is that I firmly believe that fathers are important. I see it with my older son just being in his life. He's a really accomplished dude, regardless of him being my son. And the struggle with my middle son, I have a good relationship with him, but I feel, the absence. And I hope that sort of answers the question, Dr. Thomas.
Yeah, thank you very much, it did. Matt, you at the beginning painted the picture of context. Thank you for painting that picture of context. I think sometimes we think that context only matters if there's struggle. So if there's trauma, if there's been struggle, there's been lack or deep want, then I need to share how I grew up. But to also share that, no, my upbringing was, for want of a better word, very vanilla. It's just very basic. I had 2 parents who loved each other until they died, and my brothers and myself and my sisters or whoever else, we grew up nice and happy. But I also heard from what you were sharing that since then, you've done, coming out of the experience of the suiciding of your friend, since then, you've also done some reflection and noticed that even in the depths of this abundance of resources, that there was still lack, that there were still resources, there were still skills that you wished you had because of what you had experienced. Have there been any opportunities where, through your interactions with your children, it suddenly reveals something that you need to work on for yourself?
You have a way of twisting these questions and making them hard. Well, I think I'll speak a little bit. I'll start with context again. Maybe that's my safe space, right? Talk a bit about my own father, who was a Marine and an engineer and college professor, and seemingly knew how to do everything mechanical and physical there was, like building, plumbing, electrical, whatever. And so there's this sense that, so he provided this sense of competence, at least in one domain, which really kind of just made him seem like a guy who could do anything. And so that was the model of fatherhood and manhood that I think a lot of us carry, right? That we're supposed to be the fixers, the people who can take care of things, the people who can manage their situations. And so I think, in part, I really think about, in my own work, I spend a lot of time thinking about the assets of children and how do we think about young people as assets for our communities, assets for families, and really leaning into their strengths. So for me, that's my safe place as well. Like, we can reinforce the positive, and again, living in a relatively privileged environment, we can just lean into accepting the abundance that's around us often, right? Let's trust what's around us and let's lean into that. But when you come to a moment when you realize wait a minute, we don't have the assets and the tools that we really need right now, and that seeing like the needs, and seeing the needs of myself and my own children in both confronting that particular suicide that I talked about, but also confronting other things that we've gone through. You know, my son got into some trouble at various points. Really realizing that like I didn't have all the tools and I needed to learn from people around me and bring people into our lives in order to work through this. So really, I think it was reflecting on what do my kids need that I'm not able to provide, that I need to reach out for additional resources and support. And so I actually, doing this, I was like, what am I doing on this panel with all these people who are really thoughtful and incredible, have incredibly reflective experiences on parenting. So I interviewed my daughter about what she learned about dealing with trauma, dealing with grief, and what she learned from me as a parent. And that's what she came back with was, I think we learned that it takes community, it takes a village, and that she leads her life in a much more open and transparent and communicative way. So I think that, we can get better with each generation. So, but I do think that it's the humility of being willing to reach out for additional resources, I think is what I needed, what I learned when I saw what we all were going through collectively, and in fact, what I see my children doing better than I was able to do at their age, for sure.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So I'm going to, two things. One, I don't know who's keeping time, and I don't have my phone with me, so please let me know. Okay, great. So you've gotten a chance to hear a little bit about the stories of the panelists. Gotten a chance to kind of get a little bit under their skins, and I want to spend some time now with just a very general discussion. So I'll throw out a couple of questions, and if you feel that question fits nicely with what you want to share with us, whether about your experience or how to address it, feel free to jump in. Don't assume that you have to answer every question. We'll just answer based on what is most interesting to you. So first, for the fathers who are here and for those who are here to support fathers and support families, a piece of advice: how do you balance being strong for your kids with being honest with your struggles? In other words, how do you approach vulnerability? I was coming with the hard questions. I think, did I tell you all that?
I was ready.
Oh, good. At least one person was ready. I thought I told you, maybe I didn't. So the idea of vulnerability as a man, it's not what our society generally appreciates or rewards. But how do you as a dad balance being strong for your kids while also being honest with your struggles? Yeah, sure.
I think about this when it comes to a veteran, is where I learned this mindset, is there is a multi-generation of veterans that never share their story, whether it be the military side of the story or whether it be their story, because it's all one giant compartmentalized mess. And at the same time, they're robbing their kids and the next generation from every lesson that they learn from their story. And so I lean into use my own story as my teaching tool. Like when in doubt, I will share something that resonates from my childhood, maybe a moment that I've had similar moments like that. And because by demonstrating my story is my strength. And the story of how dad got through it is the strength. It's not a light switch of, wow, that man looks really strong. There's physical strength, but the emotional strength and the part that I pass on to my kids is that they know how I lived. And I think about it with 3 L's. If they know how I loved, how I lived, and how I led, and using the vulnerability of those failures in those 3 categories, whether you had high points in your love category or low points, and how you passed on your dating failures to them so that they can maybe learn from those mistakes, that vulnerability becomes a strength. And it's something that over time, there's a final thought on this, is that we die 2 times. We die once when we take our last breath, and we die the second time when the last time someone says our name. If we share our story long enough, and good enough with the good stuff, not just the easy stuff, but the wisdom that was baked in the fire of life, it could be like an heirloom passed down for 200 years, and you will live forever. So that's strength, not even in the context of looking strong just because you went to the gym today.
I feel like, all right, what's helped me and continues to help, I strive to be genuine. I'm not gonna, I gleaned a lot of lessons from my wife having cancer, and she had a 3-year cancer journey, but I gleaned a lot in our last, I would say 2 months, that really helped me consolidate some of the lessons or some of the things and beliefs that I had been forming over time. But there was a moment where she asked, how do you do it? How do you do that? I was like, how do I do what? And she's like, you laugh one moment and you cry the next. I was like, so I told her, kind of a little redundant, but I listened to my body, and also I don't know, emotions aren't meant to be, for me, but emotions and our experience are meant to be held and to hold us down or to anchor us. They're used to grow us. And so even with my in my parenting, whether it's with my stepdaughter or my son, they get to see me cry. They get to see me laugh. They get to see me struggle, and they get to see that I don't know, that I still exist beyond that. I still push, and so I try to be my most genuine self. I just really quickly. One of the things that there's like parallels between my own upbringing and the things that I didn't want to, the cycles that I didn't want to continue. I saw my mom cry once. I saw her cry. I technically 2 times, I would say, but 1 time specifically. And I remember, I'm not going to repeat it here because it's vulgar, but I remember what I said to her when she was crying. I had to be about 12. And I think back to that moment. I repeated something she would say to me when I cried. I can't say it, but, and I think I said, dang, I don't ever want to say that to my kid. Yeah. And yeah, I don't ever want to say what I said and what my mom would say to us when we cried. And so for me, and I want him to see who I am. I don't want him to be surprised when somebody tells him who his dad is. Like if I die and other people tell, oh, your dad was, no, I want him to know. I want him to be like, not surprised at all. Like, oh yeah, I know what my dad is. And hopefully I live long enough and live beyond him, where he's giving my eulogy or speaking at my funeral, and he can, and people are surprised at the things he knows. Or the me he knows, like, wow, I didn't know that part there. I want him to know every part of me. Whether it's crying because I'm watching him sing, or crying because I'm missing his mom, laughing at a Richard Pryor movie, I don't know. Genuinely.
Thank you so much.
I'd just add one quick thing to what Eric said, which was really beautiful, is that I feel like one of the great challenges between adults and young people, whether they're your own kids or other kids that you may have an opportunity to mentor across with, teach with, is building those trusting relationships that last over time. And those are built on honesty, right? And I feel like, and reciprocity, and I heard both of those things in what Eric is talking about. Because I think what I really want, and what I want for all kids, is they feel like I've got these adults, I have adults in my life that have my back, I've got adults in my life that know me, and I've got adults in my life that aren't gonna make me be something I don't wanna be. And so it's, to me, that honesty is really, really critical. And I think the feeling that young people are more resilient than we sometimes give them credit for, that they have their own developmental way of dealing with things, that the questions will come when they're ready to come. And we have to be ready to be there to answer them as honestly as possible, because I don't want my kids to ever feel like they didn't know the truth, that I was somehow not straight with them. So I think that's a beautiful area.
So unless you're about to jump into that question, it looks like you're not, Felipe. We have a few minutes left, and I wanted to give the audience a chance to ask a couple of questions. Hopefully you've been very tightly weaving your question. So maybe we have 1 or 2. I think there's a mic somewhere there. Yeah, we have one across there. You have a mic in the back, you there, and another one in the back. So if you could go up to the mic and wait at the mic, that'll be great. Thanks.
Hi everyone. First off, happy Sweetest Day. Sweetest Day is supposed to be something for the fathers, and this goes along with my question. Have you guys given any thought? Have you heard anything? Is there anything going down or up the grapevine about how to celebrate fathers more when it comes to Father's Day, when it comes to Sweetest Day, when it comes to having a celebration for the men? Anything like that?
Okay, I'm up here asking what is Swedish?
A sweetest day? Sweetest day? Like a candy is sweet? It's like the opposite of Valentine's Day. Women for Valentine's, Sweetest Day for men. A lot of people don't even know it's a thing.
I thought I was coming from the Diabetic Society.
Exactly. So if there's anything down the line that's going to help us promote and show each other love, I can come up with stuff, but does anybody else have any other ways?
So it's not about diabetes. So
No.
I would say that the first thing we need to do then is to make this thing better known, because I have never heard of it before until now. Sweetest Day.
It comes right after my birthday. It's today, so happy Sweetest Day, guys.
Any suggestions about? I would say, and the panel could jump in, and anybody could jump in as well. I would say start by focusing on yourself for Sweetest Day. Focus first on being kind to yourself. What can I do today to be kind to myself? What can I do today to change the internal monologue, the internal voice? There's a voice that has been built over time through your experiences that judges you, that cuts you down, that slices you open, that leaves you bare, that leaves you naked and afraid. And you do everything in your power so that the world will not see that that is how you're feeling. That is what sometimes people call toxic masculinity. I have my own issues with toxic masculinity. That's a whole other conversation. But that's what people often refer to as toxic masculinity. That weirdness in trying to hide the weakness and the vulnerabilities that we're feeling. So start first by being kind to yourself. And as you're kind to yourself, you'll start learning how to be kind to other people.
How do you expect to be fixed if nobody knows there's something wrong going on inside?
Say that again?
As to how do you know that it's possible to be fixed if no one knows, or how do you help you if no one knows there's anything going on inside of you?
So you know that there's something going on inside of you, and I think Matt was saying it, that you have to muster up the courage to seek help outside of yourself.
That's what I'm saying, but if you don't do that, no one else.
Nobody,
knows
exactly.
what's going on inside.
Yeah, exactly.
They might have an inkling, like some action that you do, but you're not being specific in any way to let them know that there's something wrong.
More than not being specific, you're not being honest. You're not being authentically yourself. And so nobody can help you if you're not even willing to be yourself with everybody else. Thanks very much for that. And we'll take the last question.
Okay, my question is, what do you guys kind of like contribute this interest now in men? Because I know we got a conference down there in Rockford, Illinois, and we got this conference, and this gentleman here got one in Milwaukee next month. Anybody want to go to that one? So we see this renewed interest now in this fatherhood stuff. So we got our own opinions though. So what do you guys contribute this new interest in it?
Like, why is it new interest? I would say there's a blunt answer that I often say is that the real Cold War of the last 50 years is the temperature men kept their hearts. Take that one to the bank. That was a pretty heavy hitter. And hearts are warming up because our generation has been exported from that temperature. And we know the results of it because we felt it. We've done the internal work. And a rising tide will raise all ships. And all it can take is one dad to change the world. Abraham Lincoln, Martin Luther King, they both were like you and I. The only difference is they learned how to move mountains with their words, and then they moved them. That's my job as a speaker. All of our jobs as a father is to understand how we can move our own mountains. And if you want to think about how do you export or how do you make it bigger, become the billboard for what's possible. Most men have no idea. I take care of a 2-year-old out of our 4 kids at home every day, and I feel robbed that I never knew how good fatherhood could feel. And every day I go to Target, every time I'm at the library at story time, I'm exporting a new version that this is normal. You got to normalize what you normalize. If you want us to be normal, you've got to be that normal in the world for it to happen.
I want to push back a little bit on that. I don't think there's a new interest. I really think there's always been an interest in like parenting broadly, but also fatherhood in this role. I think if anything, it's just I think with each generation we're like learning or sort of even through our stories we're learning like, oh no, that didn't work. And I think I think maybe the platforms we have, I think particularly this current generation, I don't know what to call it, but I think with it's paralleling like the visibility of other things like mental health and stuff like that. I think the fatherhood journey parallels like the mental health journey and even our openness and acceptance of like speaking more broadly about our own mental health challenges and conditions. I really honestly think it's just it comes with the time, and I think our role is just keep speaking about it, to keep challenging those like narratives that aren't healthier. Where was I? I was somewhere. I was at a parent cafe. I don't want to say which organization it was on, but there was a woman speaking, and I respect her position, but she was speaking more generally about her thoughts on fathers because of her unique experience with her husband. Fathers as just that provider, comes home, he works, comes home, just sits, and I was like, you're sitting in front of 3 different dads who who actually are like the primary caregivers, and so I think we just keep showing up as ourselves and just keep challenging those narratives that don't speak to the truth of the broad range of what a father could be and is.
Thank you very much. So I see the timekeepers inching closer towards us, which means our time must be up. But before we end it, I want to share something that woke me up a couple of nights ago when I was thinking about this conference and what I would see when we were done with this discussion, but hopefully carrying it on beyond this space. That fathers are the fire bringer. Fathers are the fire bringer. And for every father, your presence is a spark. Your presence is a spark. Your voice is a spark. Your child hears your voice and it sparks something in their spirit. Your child sees your face and it sparks something in their spirit. You're cheering in the crowd and they look and trying to find your face and their eyes meet yours and it sparks something in their spirit. Your look of approval as they're building something, as they're playing a game, sparks something in their spirit. They see you present. They're sitting playing and they hear your footsteps and the door opens and it sparks something in their spirit. Your child is waiting for that spark. There are many opportunities to create that spark, to ignite that curiosity, to ignite that life in your child's eyes. And your child is waiting. The world itself can sometimes be like a wet blanket. Disappointment, failure, comparison, judgment, misunderstanding, callous words, unbelief, all can be like wet blankets and can put out the spark of inspiration, the spark of drive and motivation, the spark of presence, the spark of belief, the spark of pride, the spark of love, of comfort, of sacrifice, of confidence. But you can ignite that spark again. You can be the one that brings that fire to that child. ignite the fire of their potential, their God-given purpose, the spark of dad. It ignites the fire that is your child. With fathers, kids go further. Kids shine brighter. Kids burn brighter. Families thrive. So dads will always be the fire giver. Dads will always be the fire bringer. Dad is the ignition that inspires purpose and passion. So be present. Be engaged. Be dad. Thank you.